Before I get directly into what aspect signals, I want to draw an analogy for you. Do you remember how with nominals, we had three different kinds of nominals based on their semantics? Simple, simple things, complex things, and pointer things. Simple things would be what are traditionally called adjectives, along with some other things, but an adjective like blue, green, fast, slow, etc. Complex things are traditionally called nouns. And pointer things are things like deictics, like pointers, like this, that, those, or in Greek especially the article, the one. Now, this is not a perfect analogy, but you can think about verbals in a very similar way. And that is that verbals have one of three aspects. Simple verbals have perfective aspect. Complex verbals have imperfective. Imperfective aspect. And pointer verbals have stative aspect. Now, perfective verbals can sort of stand alone. And the semantic process that they construe is construed as this atomic thing, a simple process. He went, he said, he did, he thought. Usually these simple processes are realized by a single clause. So I'll say single clause. Again, that's usually. It's not a perfect analogy, but I think it's extremely helpful. Imperfective and stative aspect, by contrast, are usually realized by multiple clauses. Now, the difference here is that an imperfective process, a complex process, is complicated by multiple clauses. When you have multiple clauses and one of those clauses has an imperfective verb, the other clauses, besides the imperfective one, will usually complicate the process itself. So whatever that process is, if you imagine something like he was going, but then something else happened, that something else, those complicating clauses, will usually complicate the process itself. So it will become this complex process, kind of like a noun is multiple properties put into one thing. This is a process that's construed as a complicated process, and usually this is realized by multiple clauses which complicate your understanding of that process. Stative aspect, by contrast, is used to refer a process to a complex state of affairs. So a stative process will usually be realized by a group of clauses all together. So there's one clause that has a stative process. That means to understand that clause properly, to interpret it properly in its context, you need to look at the clauses that complicate that process. But they don't complicate the process itself. Rather, the other clauses will complicate the context or situation of that process. So what's going on in the context of that process, that's what gets complicated with a stative. So I'll write here, multiple clauses complicate the process. And for the stative, multiple clauses complicate the context or the state of affairs. So this is not something you need to memorize, but this is my explanation of what's going on with aspect, verbal aspect. Why would there be different aspects?